The Golden State Warriors made a signing that may have gone under the radar for some, but it's apparent now that Charles Bassey is making a major impact for the Golden State Warriors, maybe even a big-time impact in the postseason, which could earn him long-term status with the Dubs. You're watching Warriors Today by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Tyler Smith. We're going to break down this signing and his performance so far with Golden State, but I want to let you guys know the Warriors are now officially locked in to the 10th seed in the Western Conference, so they will face off against whoever ends up in the 9 seed in a play-in game next week. We're still TBD on the time on that. We'll talk more about the end of the season and a potential play-in matchup on the back half of today's show. Before we do, manifest a W down below. If you want the Warriors to make it through the play-in, do one thing for me. Hit that thumbs up icon, like today's video, send good vibes to your Golden State Warriors here now that Steph is back, and they made an awesome roster move with signing Charles Bassey, who we'll talk about right now, as they signed him to an end of season, like rest of season contract, similarly to the way that they signed Kevin Knox last year, if you guys remember that, after his 10-day contract with the Celtics expired. Remember, Bassey had been with the Warriors G League team earlier this season, his second stint with Santa Cruz, and he was a 2021 second-round pick. He was actually a very highly recruited high school player. Didn't end up doing too much out there at Western Kentucky, but he is a guy who spent time with the Philadelphia 76ers, the San Antonio Spurs, Memphis Grizzlies, to name a few, and then he's bounced around the G League as well. Steve Kerr said he's a really impressive player so far, so he's got the co-sign from the head coach. He's got the co-sign from Draymond Green, which we'll say in a second. And this is all because he put up a monster stat line against the Sacramento Kings on Tuesday night. 14 points and 12 boards, one of the best games of his career that he's ever played, along with 4 stocks, man. 2 steals, 2 blocks. He's a force down low. He's not afraid to throw his body around and, send back shots at the rim. I mean, just in his last 10-day contract with the Celtics, I'm going to mention this because, of course, I'm going to mention this. Jonathan Kuminga was playing with the Atlanta Hawks, and he was going down the lane and trying to throw down a tomahawk, like punch it type of slam, and Charles Bassey sent it right back in his face. He is not afraid to get physical, and he loves just muddying the game up down low. And the Warriors really lack a player like that. And one thing I also love about Charles Bassey is that he's not giving up. He doesn't give up on this NBA dream long term because he's had the opportunity to make more money in certain situations going overseas and playing in Europe over the past 2 years, and he's not considered it whatsoever. He said no consideration, for sure, no overseas. I know the NBA is going to happen. I don't know when, but I just got to keep going, and he's making the most of his opportunities over the home stretch of this season. I've loved what I've seen so far from Charles Bassey, not only in the Warriors stint so far, but if you guys don't know, I've watched a couple of Celtics games this season, and he was awesome in the short stints that he got for them too. Draymond Green with this co-sign for Charles Bassey, saying, very live body. He's a really good shot blocker, rebounds the ball well, a lob threat, great finisher around the rim. He's got really good hands. That's the one thing that kind of stood out the most to me. I think he's getting more and more comfortable, but he's been good these last couple of games. I mean, those are all things you absolutely want in an around-the-rim big, a rim-running big. Charles Bassey checks a lot of those boxes. I'm honestly unsure as to why he hasn't gotten as much run as I think he deserves, and as what he showed in the 27 minutes that he played against Sacramento. Got a little bit less run in the game before that for Golden State, but he still sent back 2 shots in the 10 minutes that he played in that one, which makes me think, with the way this Warriors roster is constructed, Bassey could be a factor in the postseason. If there's one thing that we haven't seen, and if there's one thing that Warriors fans have been clamoring for years, it's real size on this roster. They got a little bit better in that regard with Quentin Post getting drafted last year, and he's shown good flashes, but he's not really an around-the-rim big as much as Charles Bassey is, a force on the glass and sending shots back as much as Charles Bassey is. Al Horford is kind of like a hybrid of the two. Yeah, he can play around the rim and block some shots, but he's a perimeter guy too. Plus, he's 40 years old. This is like Draymond said, live body, young, energetic, explosive, impressive. Charles Bassey is a very underrated and under-the-radar pickup here by Golden State, and it could end up paying off even more than it already has. Here's what he said about his role in Golden State. I just try to get extra possessions for my team. That means extra shots for Steph. Just extra possessions to try to help. That's what I do, man. Just bring that energy every time for my teammates, regardless of how many minutes I play or what I do out there. I just know my job is to go out there and just give them extra juice, an extra boost every time. Like I said, This team needs a garbage man, somebody who's going to muddy things up down low. They have that in Draymond Green, but at the end of the day, sometimes Draymond Green gets over-muscled. Sometimes Draymond Green just can't defend the guys who are 6, 7 inches taller than him at this level, and that's okay. Like, Draymond affects the game defending 1 through 4, 1 through 5, better than a lot of guys even at his age at this point. But Charles Bassey can play down low. He can allow Draymond Green to defend on the perimeter. Like, there's a lot of versatility that he provides to this team. So I'm excited to see where this goes from here. Plus, Al Horford has been hurt over the last few weeks. He's missed the last 12 games with a calf strain. And for a guy who's 40 years old, that's not too promising, especially when you're about to play the highest pressure games of your season. So Charles Bassey, you're definitely going to be called upon here over the final 3 games of the year, but I could see them potentially going to him in the play-in when all the marbles are at stake. With that being said, do you want the Warriors to sign Charles Bassey long-term? To maybe this offseason give him a standard 1 to 2 year contract? Let me know what your guys' thoughts are down below. Y for yes and for no, and if you want Charles Bassey on the Dubs long-term or not. Coming up next, what does the rest of this season look like? These last couple of games, and then the Warriors play-in, who's their opponent going to be, when's that game going to be, and what does it look like for Golden State moving forward? We'll tell you in just a moment. First, though, I got to tell you guys about our sponsor on today's show, and that's Prize Picks. The playoff push is heating up in the pro basketball circuit, and there's no better way to cash in if you're right on the high-flying hoops action than Prize Picks, America's #1 sports picks app. Every bucket, every dime, and every win means more when you're playing on Prize Picks. And with their brand new Team Picks markets, you can now pick game winners, spreads, and totals on top of the player picks you already know. So cash in if you're right during all the clutch buckets and slam dunks this spring with Team Picks on Prize Picks. You pick the winners straight up on Prize Picks. Who's going to win the next big basketball game? Who's going to win the fight? Back your takes with real money. And I love making Team Picks on Prize Picks, and they don't just have individual games. If you click into Team Picks, you can even pick who will win the league, MVP, or other awards. It's just another way to pick the sports you love, all on Prize Picks. So download the Prize Picks app today and pick your first game winner, spread, or total as the playoff push rolls on. And get $50 in daily fantasy lineups when you play your first $5 lineup after using our promo code CLNS. That's code CLNS to get $50 in daily fantasy lineups when you play your first $5 lineup on Prize Picks. Prize Picks Predict is a registered FCM offering team picks and culture picks as event contracts. Trading involves significant risk and not for all. The content provided is for informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice, recommendation, trade any commodity interest, or an offer to open an account. Chat Sports is not registered with the CFTC or NFA. Prize Picks Predict does not endorse or guarantee any statements made by third-party promoters or influencers. Please consult with a qualified professional before making any trading decisions. So the 2026 NBA play-in, which Golden State will be in, and they will be on the road for their first game, is going to take place next week. And it will take place beginning on Tuesday with games on Wednesday and then Thursday and Friday too. We don't yet know exactly when the 9-10 play-in game will be. It could be Tuesday, it could be Wednesday, but historically, more often than not, the 9-10 games have been on Wednesday. They'll do the 7-8 games on the Tuesday night between the West, the East, and the West, and then both 9-10 games will play on Wednesday. But sometimes they've done it where the entire conference, the East and the West play on, the East plays on Tuesday, and then the West plays their 7-8 and 9-10 game on Wednesday. That happened in, I believe, 2021 and 2024. And then every other year other than that, they've done the staggered seeding arrangement of 7-8, 7-8, and then 9-10, 9-10. So more likely than not, it will be on Wednesday, but we don't know the way the format is going to be just yet. The possible play opponents for Golden State in that game in the 9-10 will be the Clippers or the Trailblazers. The Clippers currently have a 1-game lead on Portland at this point, but there's a lot of nuance to this that we'll get to in just a second. The Clippers, as a matchup for Golden State, they definitely aren't as daunting as they were previously as far as trading away a guy like Ivica Zubac, who gave the Warriors a ton of problems. Like, they don't have as much top-end size as they did before, so that's going to be an easier route for Golden State. But Kawhi Leonard's playing at an MVP level this season. An issue with playing the Trailblazers is they're incredibly young. They're maybe the anti-Warriors this season. They run up and down the floor. They're a little bit more chaotic than Golden State is in terms of the way that they play their half-court offense. So it's definitely a much different opponent in terms of play style-wise when you're playing either one of these two. Both have their pros, both have their cons. I don't really care who Golden State plays at the end of the day. They got Wardell and the other teams don't. The Clippers, though, they do play Oklahoma City tonight, right after this video is going to be pushed out. And then these two teams play, the Clippers and the Trailblazers, right after. So if the Clippers, I don't even know what the tiebreakers are between those two teams at this point, but the Clippers If they end up losing this game and then lose the game against Portland, well, then Portland controls their own destiny for that 8 seed and only having to play one game before getting the 7 seed in the Western Conference, matching up with the 7. And the loser of that game would play the winner of the 9-10. So Golden State's been in this position a couple of times now, so I know you guys all get the gist here. But then the Warriors play the Clippers on the last day of the season. So the Clippers with a couple of high-leverage games here in their final 3. OKC, Portland, who's fighting for a better playoff situation, and then Golden State, who knows what roster they will field for that final game, because since they're locked into the 10, it doesn't make a lot of sense to play anybody the rest of the way. So that begs the question, will Steph play? How many games will Steph play over the final 3 here for Golden State? He's already questionable against the Lakers on Thursday, or Friday. So it's interesting, man. But we will see. I understand the want to have Steph out there because he's only played 2 games in the last 30 for Golden State. But I also understand preserving him for what would be the highest leverage game of the season coming on Tuesday or Wednesday. And the way that Steph looks, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe he's fine. He looked exactly like he has throughout his entire career against the Rockets earlier this week, and then against the Kings it was a little worse, but still he was moving well. The way that Steph looks right now, I would take Golden State to get out of the play-in. I just would. And then there's also a deep rumored thing here. I was talking to Bulls Report host Patrick Seatman, who's very well versed in the play-in, as in the Bulls are there every year except this one. He was talking about how the Portland Trailblazers have their pick sent to the Chicago Bulls, which is lottery protected. So the Trailblazers, essentially, if they don't get into a situation where they're in the 8th seed and just have one play-in game to win, could end up tanking that 9-10 play-in game against Golden State and getting a chance at the number 1 overall pick, or at least having their first-round draft pick this season. And if it doesn't convey to Chicago, it becomes a second-round pick next year. So there is incentive, technically, for the Portland Trailblazers to want that pick, but the morality in me wants to believe that Portland wants to get into the playoffs. So we'll see how it all shakes out, but let me know who you would rather play in the play-in game next week. Clippers, Trailblazers, type LAC for the Clippers, PLR for the Trailblazers. You let me know who that is down in the comment section, as that will do it for today's show. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel, youtube.com/WarriorsTV for the latest and greatest, the rest of the season, into the playoffs, into the offseason as well. We'll see you guys next time, and as always, let's go Dubs.